The Running Man is the latest dystopian action thriller that sets its sights on a totalitarian America. It's an Orwellian nightmare dressed up in Christmas tree lights. It is the new adaptation of the 1982 novel of the same name written by Richard Bachman, aka Stephen King. And I say that because this film is considered to be much closer to the original text than it is to the original 1987 film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. The Running Man is the fourth Stephen King adaptation this year, following The Monkey, The Life of Chuck, and The Long Walk. And it's the fourth as well as another movement-based competition. Stephen King himself said this version of The Running Man feels like a modern-day Die Hard, and it's brought to us directed by Edgar Wright, who I'm sure doesn't need much of an introduction, but he is known for what I would consider a few modern classics.
Yarr.
Obviously the Cornetto trilogy, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, but also Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Baby Driver, and more recently Last Night in Soho. The World's End, I might add, I do think deserves a bit of a re-evaluation. I think as I've grown older, I have much more appreciation for it. But Last Night in Soho was the first film of his, to me, that showed some serious cracks in an otherwise great vision. And I was a bit concerned going into The Running Man because of this, and the fact that this film has a budget, I believe, of 110 million, which is a significant jump. His previous largest budget was around 60 to 80 million for Scott Pilgrim, and I was worried he might have less creative control due to this. I also wasn't crazy on the trailer when it first dropped, but now I've actually seen it. Is it as full throttle as the title implies, or is this just a light jog in the park? Well, I actually think it's a pretty fun time, and I know the word fun can be misconstrued to mean bad movie, good time, but that's not the case here. I think it's a good Edgar Wright film. I think it's a much more coherent vision than Last Night in Soho, even if it is missing the visual flair of that film. But this film has got the trademarks, it's got the momentum that you love from an Edgar Wright film. It's a little more glossy than usual, but I think the good stuff is in here, and it makes such a huge difference to the way this film feels. The rhythm to its editing is so satisfying. It has a great kinetic energy that makes the film feel like a grenade that's tumbling down a hill and you don't quite know when it's going to explode. And because it's rooted in a game show, there is a lot of opportunity to play around with the film's format. And I think it creates some fun and interesting scenarios. So the film follows Ben Richards, a working class man who is desperately trying to provide for his family and take care of his sick daughter. At the end of his tether, he agrees to go on the game show, The Running Man, a show that asks its participants to survive for 30 days without being tracked down by a group of hunters. Victory means he will be placed in the top 1% of the population in terms of wealth. Defeat means death. Yes, this might sound a bit familiar, especially as we've just had The Long Walk so recently. And the thing about this film is, even though I don't think it adds anything new to the conversation, in fact, it feels like it has a social bucket list that it is required to dip into occasionally that leads to some forced plot points and themes. I think this film is at its best when it's more content just making a solid action film that brings the original novel to life. A quick disclaimer, I've not read the full original novel, I've not seen the original Running Man film either, and I usually like to watch and read in preparation for a film, especially if it's a film that I plan on making a video on, but I just decided to go in blind to this and just be entertained. And I think that was the right choice, because right at this film's core is entertainment, and it lends itself to a very meta style of delivery because of it. And unlike The Long Walk, this film leans into its game show and audience reaction. A lot of moments are amped up here because we get a constant running commentary. This film has its own hype man, and that man is Coleman Domingo, who is absolutely brilliant here. I think he hams it up in all the right ways. His character is a true manifestation of the bated breath of the audience. And then we have Josh Brolin as the big boss TV exec who is as fake as his teeth. He's just the right level of smug with a sort of smarmy charm. And both of these characters could have come off as grating, but they get the balance just right. And then we have Glenn Powell, who kind of won me over a bit. I was very skeptical going in of his casting. I was worried I would find him a bit too smug, and there were moments where he toes the line a bit for me, but overall I think it's a solid performance. He's got the Tom Cruise running style down. He has the exaggerated, palpable, bubbling rage that reminded me of Bob Odenkirk in Nobody, and he's got that physicality. He wears the tight clothing, and he's got the stunts down. One thing that did frustrate me a tad in this film though is it's got a feeling of, it feels a bit plastic. And of course a lot of that comes from the endless sheen coming off all the cheesy graphics in use here. It's beyond clean and it removes a bit of the grit for me, but it does work for the world it's portraying, even if it does feel a bit like a 2000s X-Men film at times. And this might just be more of a personal preference because I like my dystopian films to feel a bit more like Blade Runner. The film has a pretty flawless Act 1. It blends exposition and world building with some great tension that all provide a great hook for the film. But further down the rabbit hole, and especially just shy of the finish line, you start to realize it's one of those scripts where the plot just invites audiences to look for plot holes. And what I mean by that is there is a lot of choices here that just provoke you. They drive your brain to overthink certain scenarios, and the moments like this just pull me out of the film. I won't go into any spoilers, of course. And sadly, I don't think it quite sticks the landing. That sentence will resonate with you more once you've seen it, because the film does start to consume itself by the end. It gets lost in its endless threads and themes and deviates from feeling entertaining to draining, especially when this feels like it should be a popcorn film. It has the energy of Hot Fuzz and Baby Driver, but it doesn't blend its stories as well as either of those films did. It can feel like a David Leitch film at times, like Bullet Train, maybe even a bit of Fall Guy in here, but Edgar Wright's editing and pacing make this a much more enjoyable ride than both those films, I think. I think the technical aspect of this film is good. There is a little bit of messy audio and ADR at times, but nothing too distracting. I think this film's plot and structure would feel much more generic in a different director's hands. Luckily, it doesn't here, and I think he makes it as entertaining and as fun as it could possibly be, whilst leaving a few footprints of social commentary. The Long Walk has its issues as well, but that film left me feeling the weight of the world it was set in. This film shares a lot of those themes, but here it was more a diluted echo chamber of those ideas. I think this is worth your time. I saw this at a secret screening and there was a few excited gasps and cheers at the screen when the title card came up, which made me very happy to see because I think we are all just happy to have another Edgar Wright film. It's not a full-blown crowd pleaser, but it leans into that territory. It balances its humor well, and I think it offers an experience that, despite some jagged edges, is very solid. And that's all I've got to say on this one, really. Do consider checking it out and let me know what you think of the film in the comments. I've managed to get this video out before release date for once, so the film comes out on the 12th of November, I believe, and the 14th for everywhere else. Please do consider subscribing. I've got reviews of The Long Walk and The Life of Chuck on the channel if you're interested in my thoughts on those films, but all that's left to do now is to thank you very much for watching.